حي على الفلاح.
Once all help has removed itself from your life, then you open your hands and you say, Ya Allah, no one is here for me. I have nobody. Even if I could ask somebody, I can't, because nobody is around me. Nobody can help. Oh Allah, you're the only one who can help me. Please help me. The Prophet Muhammad ﷺ taught us very beautifully in a hadith that tests from Allah, meaning something that is not favorable, we wouldn't choose on our own because it's something uncomfortable or it's something even just painful. That tests are something the Prophet ﷺ said every single person will have to endure. One of the things that happens amongst communities and families and individuals and friends is that we look at each other and we start to say, well, my life is more challenging than this person's life. Everyone looks at someone who is wealthier than them or more successful in terms of academics or professional, and they'll say, this person doesn't experience any difficulty. This person has no idea of the difficulties I'm going through. Their life is so easy. The Prophet ﷺ taught us that this is not the case. That every single son and daughter of Adam ﷺ will be tested. So the idea of being tested, the Prophet ﷺ, he completely dispels this notion that when God puts a difficulty in your life in the form of a test, that it's a sign of punishment or consequence. No, the Prophet ﷺ taught us that the idea that a test exists is in fact it has function. And that to prove to you that it has function, the Prophet of God, who is the most beloved to God, is saying that I'm the most tested. I'm the one that receives the most moments of confusion and difficulty out of everybody. So if Allah wanted to show displeasure, why would test be the language that He used? Number two is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions in the Quran, لَقَدْ خَلَقْنَا الْإِنسَانَ فِي كَبَدٍ. He says that the human being was created in a status of work, in a status of hard work, toil. That it's not going to be easy. There are some days where things might be easier than other days, but the reality is that every day has its own fair share of challenges. And Allah tells us this in the Quran. So when these moments happen to us and we look up at the sky, to the heavens, and we say, Ya Allah, why me? Why me? The reality is Allah Ta'ala's response is already before the question, that this is the design of this dunya. Allah Ta'ala tells the reader of the Quran, the believer and the non-believer alike, that we will test you. There are going to be tests in your life with a certain amount of fear, that there are anxieties about what? About what's happening in the world around us, about the future. Many people, a lot of their anxieties come from the idea of the unknown. What's going to happen next year? Will I have this job or not? Am I going to, is this application going to go through or not? Where will I be living? That's a form of a test. And then Allah Ta'ala continues, and a person will also feel the fear of their hunger. The fact that not everything's going to be comfortable all the time. And there will be loss of wealth, look at the stock market, and there will be loss of life, and provision, and fruits. All of these things will go one after another. You will experience all of these. But then Allah Ta'ala finishes the verse very beautifully when He says, وَبَشِّرِ الصَّابِرِينَ. And good news, glad tidings. You've won. To who? As-sabirin. Those people who have sabr. What does sabr mean? Many of the scholars define sabr very beautifully. We say the word patience. That's not the definition of sabr. Because patience in and of itself is like an internal state. But patience is something, sabr is something that should be displayed. That a person has the ability to persevere despite being put in the test. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is praising those people who amidst all difficulties can still look to the optimism of hoping in Allah and keep going and keep moving. And who better to describe this experience? Who better to live this experience and to show us how to emulate it than the Prophet ﷺ? He was somebody that no matter what difficulty happened in his life, he still found a way to keep going. Whether it was being boycotted and almost starved to death with his companions, whether it was the assassination attempts on his life, whether it was the constant rejection from tribe after tribe, people after people. I mean, we complain about 10 minutes, 13 minutes of difficulty. The Prophet ﷺ went through over a decade of rejection from his own people. And never once did he look to say, oh Allah, I'm done. Oh Allah, I give up. Oh Allah, this isn't fair. Why does Abu Jahl have more than me? Why does Abu Lahab have more than me? Why do these guys have more than me? The Prophet ﷺ never ever let his heart turn in that direction. He dealt with it beautifully. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala continues and finishes the verse. He describes who are the sabirin, those people that when they are hit with a calamity, which is again showing us it's not a matter of if, but when. Those people that when they experience a difficulty, when they get into the car accident, when they get the diagnosis of illness, when they lose their job, when something bad happens to them from all the lists that Allah described and more, قَالُوا إِنَّ لِلَّهِ وَإِنَّا إِلَيْهِ رَاجِعُونَ. The first thing that comes out of their mouth, because you can't hide it. You know what's in the heart comes out right away. That's why some people, they speak in their mother tongue. So what's the first thing that comes out of the heart of a true person who is patient and perseverant? The first thing, إِنَّ لِلَّهِ وَإِنَّا إِلَيْهِ رَاجِعُونَ. The first thing. Not some sort of curse word, not some sort of question, not why? Why is this happening? Ugh, not complaints. The first thing that they say is, verily we come from Allah, we belong to Allah, and to Him we are returning. The scholars of tafsir, some of them explain this. Why is this statement so powerful? Because this statement reminds the person in difficulty that just like this life is temporary, your difficulty is also temporary. When your life ends on this dunya, when you depart from this material world, you will realize that the difficulties you experience in this life will have no comparison to the pleasure and the relaxation and the relief and the utter joy and beautiful experiences that you will have in Jannah. May Allah Ta'ala make us amongst them. The hadith teaches us, subhanAllah, that when a person enters paradise, they will be asked and they will have the hardest life. The person who struggled to keep a job, who couldn't find a place to live, who couldn't eat what they wanted. I'm talking about the most difficult life. And when that person is given paradise, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will ask that person, did you experience any difficulty in the last life at all? And the person will be so overwhelmed by the pleasure and by the relief that they are experiencing in Jannah that they will say, oh Allah, we didn't experience any difficulty at all. It's like when you go through a whole challenge to get to your vacation, but you check into the room and now you got the ocean view. This is worth it. What are the benefits of these trials? Number one, when a person goes through difficulty, this person realizes that they are ultimately not in control. The scholar here is saying, the Shaykh, he's saying, Izzuddin ibn Abdus Salam, by the way, he's a 7th century scholar. He says that in life, when things go well, you start to walk with a little bit more swag in your step. And you start to maybe feel like, you know what, everything is going the way that I want. Everything is in my control. And what happens naturally when a person starts to get everything they want, and when everything is lining up perfectly, and there's no challenge, not even the slightest irritation to your plan, is that the person, and this is natural, starts to develop the misunderstanding of ultimately who's in control. You think that you have everything planned out, and your flight gets delayed. You think that you have everything perfect, and the restaurant calls and says your order is not going to be ready. You think you have everything set, and you forgot to catch one mistake before you turned in your presentation. All these things are small moments where Allah Ta'ala is reminding you that He's the one in charge. The next benefit, related to the first benefit, but it's the action that comes from that. When you realize that Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala is the one who's in charge, the action or the behavior that comes from that is that you become a person of dua. That when a person thinks that they're in control, they don't know how to seek and ask from Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala. How do you ask from someone when you think that you're self-sufficient? Allah Ta'ala says, seek from Allah. Like desperately ask Allah. You know, when you're standing there, subhanAllah, and you are overcome with emotion. Oh Allah, we have wronged ourselves. And if you don't forgive us, and if you don't have mercy on us, then we're done. We're doomed. In that dua, you're entertaining the idea of what happens if this doesn't go through. So when I ask Allah, oh Allah, let me get the job. Oh Allah, let me get married. Oh Allah, give us children. Oh Allah, this and this. Many people say, Shaykh, I make dua and it's flat. Ibn Ata'illah says, you will never make dua properly until you know what it feels like to be helpless. Once all help has removed itself from your life, then you open your hands and you say, Ya Allah, no one is here for me. I have nobody. Even if I could ask somebody, I can't, because nobody is around me. Nobody can help. Oh Allah, you're the only one who can help me. Please help me. And those states, the state of desperation, brothers and sisters, it doesn't happen unless you're put in a difficulty. It doesn't happen when life is good. When life is good, you're like, I can figure it out. But what happens when you're completely shut out from all assistance, from all aid? Only then are you reminded who is the one who can help you. And you call upon Allah Ta'ala accordingly. Allah Ta'ala wants us to come back to Him with dua, and so He introduces a little test in our lives. A little illness, a little sickness, a little financial difficulty, a little uncertainty professionally, a little bit of a challenge. Allah just puts it right there for us. And He says, go through this. And all the good things that we thought, all the ease and tranquility, it disappears just for the blink of an eye. And in that moment, we're reminded, oh Allah, I'm so sorry that I was distracted from you. But the last benefit that we'll talk about is when you are put through difficulty, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives you the ability to be a source of strength for someone else who is also being put through difficulty. He has now made you a resource for somebody else. If I lose my job, I might go and talk to my friends. Have any of you guys lost your jobs before? Where do you go from here? If I'm struggling to have a child, I might start to look for friends. Are any of you also struggling? If I'm struggling to, get a job or move or whatever, I go to people and I say, can you guys help? And the one person that says, come here, I know what you're going through. I've been there. Let me give you some advice. And more importantly, look, there is hope at the end of this. There is light at the end of the tunnel.